What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. I'm joined by my homies, my friends, my brothers, David, Omar, the model. He's here. He's getting ready though. He has to make his grand entrance. You know what I mean? But I'm on the road right now. This is not the studio, but I'm happy to be on with my people and ready to do this thing, man. We being led by the one and only David. So before we throw it to him, Omar, how you doing today, B?
Ah, man, crazy day, but doing all right. We're finishing up the school year. It's exciting, man. We may be not just doubling the size of our organization next year, we may be in a position to double the double,
Oh, well,
which
damn.
is
Wow.
it's a lot. So I'm getting ready for really wonderful impending growth and getting myself organized. And yo, man, that comes with a slate of challenges, but wonderful challenges to have. It's a great place for us to be.
That's beautiful, man. It's on you, David. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's good to be here with both of you and our listeners to the South Star Classroom. Please share and like if you're watching us. I'll keep my piece really short before we dive in. But I did want to let our listeners know, in addition to liking and sharing, I see we got some folks with us. Thank you very much. At some point during the show, we plan to drop the link into one of our feeds. If anybody wants to hop on and join this conversation today to talk specifically about, why charter schools are important to you and your community, your family. We'd love to hear directly from people. Maybe some of those folks were in DC this week advocating for charter schools, so we appreciate you. So we want to have sort of an interactive show here, probably at the 30-minute mark. So make sure to keep the comments coming. We appreciate you all being here, and we have a good show for you in store today. Shall we jump in, Charles?
Oh, I'm with it, man. Let's do it, B.
Okay.
Oh, before you jump in, though, I will just
Yeah.
say, and I said this to Omar, I said to you, Kendrick Lamar came out today. It is. I don't want to call something a classic on day one. I think it got a lot of tracks on it, but it is really, 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 really good as of now. It is great as of now. So I've been enjoying it all day. Some of them songs hit a little close to home, but it's amazing. But yes, David, that's because I don't have a music podcast. So sorry, I had to live that
Well,
out.
I don't have a music podcast either, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you. Do you know when this new Eminem album is coming out? It's apparently many tracks being produced by The Alchemist. There's a lot of hype around it. I'm looking forward to it, and it's like they're teasing it.
He's one of
They're
my
teasing
favorites.
it.
So
Yeah.
I know, he's one of my favorites. They say that he got an album coming out every week because that's just the mystique around him. But we'll
Yeah.
see, man. I don't know. Whenever it comes out, I'll be ready. And to be and for those that are listening, on this Kendrick Lamar album, there's a lot of direct Eminem influence. So you can see it. But that again, we might have to do a spin-off episode just around music because y'all don't know that David's a DJ. He actually DJs. What's your DJ name, David?
I had many. My hip hop DJ name was Audio Intellect.
Of course it was. Of course it was. I
Sounds
love
like
it.
the name of a hacker in the 1990s, which I
It
love.
sounds
There you
like
go.
he was
There you
in
go.
Berkeley at People's Park with big old headphones on, coming
No,
out of Amoeba with
we
the
were in
backpack.
we were at Amoeba up in Upper Haight Street in San Francisco.
Okay.
And all
That's
the
your
streets on Haight
generation.
Street.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Conscious
still
hip hop,
there.
man. The '90s, nothing like it.
That's what's up. And as David said, anybody that wants to chime in about Charter Week, send us a message now, send a comment now, and we'll make sure that we DM you the link so you can join us and talk about, Charter Week or DC or why you choose alternative schools or whatever. So we'll keep reminding you.
Awesome.
Also,
Thank you.
did Dre not drop an album that I saw only on
you gotta
YouTube?
Omar, you gotta shorten your cord or you gotta push it all the way in, man.
Okay.
But
He's on the Texas power grid. They got some fluctuations out there.
but we'll get you back, Omar. Take your time.
He's on XLR. Look at that. You got the big cord.
He we got to get him right. But
okay.
Take us down the line, man.
All right, let's do it. So we are today we're talking about a couple of things. We wanted to definitely acknowledge that it is Charter Schools Week. And so we'll talk about that in a bit. But we also wanted to talk about, what does Charter Schools Week mean within the larger context of all of the other school choice dynamics that are happening, potential attacks at the federal level with some of the changes to the charter school regulations. It seems like the education space is just really kind of blown up, in some ways good and in many ways questionable. And so that's what we want to talk about today. But we always want to be grounded in what the South Star Classroom is focused on, and that's providing guidance for teachers, for school leaders, and for families and for students around how to best advocate, how to run quality schools, and how to do the work. It's not just about instruction, but there's another level of running a school that has to deal with, with advocacy, right? No person can be neutral on a moving train. So we're all on this train. So I want to start there, and I wanted to share a quick a story or revelation that I had. I've been in the charter space for a while now. Again, started by founding a school in Oakland in 2002. That school still exists. It's called Oakland Unity High School, and at a certain point, running a 9 through 12 high school in East Oakland, we started to grow frustrated that students that were showing up to our school in our summer camp, our summer bridge camp, were not showing any educational gains. Every year it was the same. Kids were coming in at like 4th, 5th, 6th grade level, and we're prepared to give them a 9th grade, education. And so at a certain point we said, well, hey, let's open a middle school. So we started to toy around with the idea. We got serious about it. And about 6 or 8 years ago, maybe, we officially submitted a charter to Oakland Unified School District to open what was to be called Oakland Unity Middle School. So we're working with the kids. We want to work with them earlier, provide more opportunity for Black and brown children to have access to a rigorous college prep curriculum in a supportive school environment, culturally affirming school environment. So that's what we did. And I'm blanking out now. It might have been 6, it might have been 8 years ago. But one of these memories popped up in my Facebook feed when I was working for the Charter School Association. One of the things that we did was we advocated, we essentially lobbied and organized and helped families organize to influence board members to support the charter school petition. And we lost at Oakland Unified School District. We lost big time. And we kept going, and we appealed to the county of Alameda. And, we did our work and we stayed focused on the goal. And the school was authorized by Alameda County Board of Education. Oakland Unity Middle School is still alive and functioning and thriving today. And the students that are that started that school as the founding 6th grade team are graduating from different high schools this year. And so it's almost like the revelation was like, wow, we've been doing this work for a long time. You got to keep pushing, and good things will happen down the road, but it takes time. There's no immediate wins in this work. And if you've been doing the work long enough, you can start to see this, that there's a cohort of Black and brown children that are going to be graduating high school, prepared for college this June, that started at that school 6 years ago or 7 years ago. And it's a school that we, had approved 8 years ago, started planning 9 years ago. So it's long-term work. We're still fighting. We're fighting for different things today, but rest assured, children are benefiting from the work and the advocacy that everybody is putting in. And so, I've had that revelation this week, Charter Schools Week, thinking about back on my career and what I've done. And it was just one little school, but it's gone on to educate thousands of children. And so I wanted to put that out there because I know what charter schools mean to me. It's a very specific thing. It's near and dear to my heart. And so I wanted to hear from a question I want to pose to both Omar and Charles, like thinking specifically, and our audience too, that's listening, what do charter schools mean to you? Like, why are they important? What role do they play in the landscape? And so we'll start there. Maybe we'll jump to
Definitely
we'll jump to,
Omar. Yeah, Omar
we'll
should
jump to
start
Omar
that.
because
Yeah.
he's in the seat. So Omar, the question to you: it's Charter Schools Week. What do charter schools mean to you? What role do they play in the broader education landscape?
How's my microphone? Is this thing working or not?
You're
You're
good.
great.
Oh, it's back. Okay, good.
We'll let you know when we get the static because we can't. It kills our ears, so we got you.
Okay,
we'll let
good.
you know.
I'm glad to hear. Man, I could talk for hours about this, so I'll consolidate this really quickly into 3 very simple and quick ideologies about how I feel about charter schools in general. One, I feel like it is truly choice. So what this offers for parents is an alternative choice with an alternative ideology in order to provide parents a free opportunity to say, if I disagree with what's going on in my district, or if I disagree with the district school, or if my district doesn't really have the open district options that they say they do, this is an alternative method that I think suits my needs, and it puts parents in the driver's seat of power and the ability to do what they think is best for their children. So that's the first. The second, and I'll be like quite stringent about this, is that I think that the overwhelming number of school districts in this country, despite being populated by very good people and very hardworking people, ultimately is a construct that is anachronistic at best. Anachronistic means you're running a 1950s model after 70 years of organizational innovation. And I have not seen any innovation in the way that a school district is run or the way a school is run. So everyone here on this call, I bet you can go back to the time that you were in school and walk into a school and it's the exact same structure. Principal, assistant principal, absolutely no innovation. They're really trying as like silver bullets. It's like, hey, let's try this STEM thing and see if it works out. The districts are run the exact same way. So for me, the charter school has been not only an opportunity.
Your headphones are starting to do it. I mean, your mic is doing it again. You might have a short, but you can go without your mic though. We'll use the computer mic for the day. Yeah. You good? We'll get you.
Charter school mentality. Improvise.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
You're cool. Great.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Turn the mic off. I'm using the great. So the second thing really is about executive management and the management structure of an organization at school. So it's funny you mentioned this because I think I've been saying this ad nauseum this week, is that if school districts are being managed and run well, the outcomes would be quite discernible, not to mention the fact that student outcomes would be higher and things like teacher attrition and so forth would be magnificently lower. So the way that we're running an organization is very closely linked with how most Fortune 100s run their organization in terms of time management, executive structure, who's doing what. We're still getting there. So like we're 7 years in, but I can tell you definitively, man, we're running like circles around any district in the state because the efficiency is through the roof in what we're able to achieve within a day. And people's personal proficiencies and efficiencies are skyrocketed because the formulas in which we run things are really the formulas in which high efficiency, high productivity companies and school districts around the country are doing. The quick addendum that is, I love charter schools because it allows me to be Willy Wonka. It's like I've got all these crazy ideas about what we should be doing in education, and we can try them out. And boy, oh boy, are they working! And I'm working at a level where I just finished looking at our MAP scores today, and I could tell you definitively that like the overwhelming majority of our kiddos grew 2 to 3 grade levels this year. That's not unnormal for what we're doing at EPLA. Not unnormal. I saw kids who grew 7 grade levels. I saw kids who grew 9 grade levels. I got kids who are like came in reading at the 4th grade level, and somehow or another, I'm like, are you at the 10th grade level now? Holy smokes, in a year. So the level of innovation within charter schools is really what the AFT president for charter schools discussed when he himself thought of this conception, which is like, we're a laboratory of innovation. And that's why I still think charter schools are like, when they start growing to these like magnificently huge, school districts like that may like look cool, like good for you, but that's not really my cup of tea. It's really about being that laboratory of innovation, and the innovations that we've created are revolutionary. I mean, I can't wait to start sharing what we're doing. Again, ladies and gentlemen, the South Star Classroom, we are not just a show, but we are a consortium. We're a consulting group. Like, you should ring me up and ring us up, because I could tell you that the innovations that the three of us have created are going to be profound for what we could be doing in a district. The last but not least is really about what charter schools mean to me. It's like you've got the parents, you've got the innovation, you've got the executive management. But I think in the realm of public education as a whole, I see this as a methodology for forcing school districts into innovation. Like, look, like, as much as people want to live in a like perfect Marxist society, we don't live in one. As people would love to see more socialist programs go through, which I would argue the military is the greatest socialist program the world has ever seen, and people forget about that. We still live in a free market society, in a capitalist society. And in that society, the dictates of competition simply state, like, if there's a school whooping the pants off of other schools, maybe we should be looking at what they're doing in order to improve other schools. So the charter schools have come around, and I've seen other school districts quickly start adapting techniques like recruitment, like data-driven instruction, personal learning communities, advisories. And to me, that's great, because the irony of running a charter school and a charter organization for me is that if we can do such an incredible job that charter schools are no longer needed because district schools are devising those levels of innovation and support, great. Is that going to happen? No. Because for as much as I've seen education be stagnant for the last 70 years, charter schools are the very quick kind of Silicon Valley-esque hub of innovation that can move quickly, change quickly, and adapt quickly. And large systems cannot do that. So I will forever try to stay in a position that is small and innovative, because that's really what charters mean to me and where I see them moving forward. There's a long answer, but I'm glad I got it all out. Doc?
Oh no, I think you did well, man. I think you did great. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
I hear you great, man.
Yeah, I think for me, I've said this, I don't love any system, right? I don't love the traditional system, private system, parochial, charter system, whatever. I love people. And when I talk about people, I say the end users, and people get mad at me when I say that, right? They're like, this is not a business. This is not, that's free market thinking. But all the things that I pay for, all the things that serve me, they are obsessed with the experiences of the end user. And a lot of times traditional schools are not that. And my so what charter schools represent to me, it's so funny. I look at these things and I just see an option. I see another option where I'm not trapped in something. And if I'm not happy somewhere else, I got something else I can go to. And for people that try to stop that, I feel like you can't say you care about agency or self-determination of Black people, brown people, poor people, whomever, when you allow people with the means to go to private school and you ain't got nothing to say. But when people choose charter schools, you got an issue. And that's a problem for me. So for me, it represents yet another option in a larger education system that has continued to fail Black and brown people en masse, that has continued to make sure that we have not gotten the things that I think that we should be getting as far as education is concerned. So my work focuses on being obsessed with my end users, the same way Starbucks is, the same way Mercedes is, the same way Amazon is. And you can say, I don't like those things. These are neoliberal things, whatever. It's a whole bunch of big $10 words you can use. But when it comes to me and mine and the options for my people that I care about, get up out the way. If you don't like it, don't do it. Because there is no one being made to attend a charter school. But guess what? There is a lot of people being made to attend certain traditional schools. And they've been made to attend those schools for 50, 60, 70 years. There's a lot of folks that have to accept crumbs and treat it like it's filet mignon. And my job is to come here and tell you those is crumbs. They might have been crumbs that your daddy enjoyed, that your granddaddy enjoyed, that your great granddaddy enjoyed, and I want to honor that, and I understand that. But crumbs, nonetheless, in some circumstances, not at all. So if you like your school, right, then rep for it. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of what it is. So to me, it represents just a way out of something if you want that option. But I just believe in choices, man. I really don't like people that feel like they smarter than me and my people when my people decide to make a choice that they don't believe in, even though they preach about Black and brown people having pride, self-determination, and faith in themselves. That math don't math. It just don't make sense. So that's what it means to me. It's another form of options and choice, because I didn't have those type of options coming up. I had to go where the district said I had to go. And my mother was threatened with, if she tried to use a different address for me to go to Berkeley High, she would have went to jail. They would have caught that fraud. Like she would have went to jail for trying to give me an education. You must be out your rabbit ass mind. You must be crazy. You must be crazy. So regardless if you like charter schools or not, regardless if you want to exercise your choice or not, and especially if you one of them white folks that tends to come down the hill from your school that is competing with private schools to tell Black people what type of schools they should put their kids in, you for damn sure can get out my way. And if you stand in it, then you just got to deal with the consequences of standing in my way and in my people's way. So that's my answer. Probably not the best one or the most PC one, but whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. So
I don't think it needs any qualification, man.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's great. I saw a statistic on the internet today from a credible source, Charter School Growth Fund. I didn't know this, but about 70% of students that are enrolled in public charter schools in the U.S. are children of color, right? And when we think about the mudslinging and the gaslighting and the criticism that is directed, they call it the charter industry. Really what they're talking about are Black and brown children and Black and brown families, right? There is no charter industry. Where these criticisms and where these critiques come from, and some of them maybe 10, 15, 20% are fair, we could have a discussion. They tend to come from the the gray brigade of retired pensionistas, right? Like mainly like older white folks, mainly women and a few men. They're like 4 or 5. You can count them, on one hand. And I'm not going to name them now, but I do think it's interesting in this moment, where this country is supposed to, have a moment of reckoning around race. The same forces that be to claim that they are about, all children in public education, can't seem to, vacate charter schools from their heads. Like charter schools live in their heads rent free. It's constantly what they're talking about. And still charter schools enroll, I think, less than 10% of students in this country, right? Still a pretty small piece of the pie. I wanted to lift up a comment here from one of our listeners or viewers. Welcome, Jessica Eastman. We've got a comment here. Jessica is, an Oaklander. Has been in Oakland for many, many years. And I feel like this comment is really important to think about because we're going to criticize systems all day. But we do know that if you put good people into a bad system, you are not going to get good results. It doesn't matter what that is. Omar spoke to it, around systems. Charles has spoken to it in different ways. When I went into education, it was a second career for me. I'd had a former career in technology during the first .com boom. And at some point realized I had to go back into education. That was my calling. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I went back to school, got my credential, and started looking for jobs. And actually worked in San Francisco Unified and Oakland Unified for several years. And I was shocked by what I saw. I couldn't believe the conditions. I couldn't believe, and I won't name any specific schools, but you can imagine, how the adults talked about children. Several of these schools I walked into, I mean, they reminded me of prisons. You walk in, nobody greets you. There's cameras everywhere. It's a cold, empty hallway. There's no artwork up. There's no, it was the strangest thing. And I'm like, these are not good environments for children. And I don't have time to push up against or work within these systems because they're big. And so immediately continued to look for a first job and didn't even know what a charter school was, and found a position at a charter school, did my limited research, and ended up being a founding teacher at Oakland Unity High School in 2002. And that's how it all started for me. And I was like, this is great. This is the best of both worlds. We're working in communities. We desire to be here. We are all here because of a mission. We are going to hold ourselves accountable. And at that time, there was an actual accountability system, No Child Left Behind. And students opt in, families opt in, and we had the autonomy to do the work that we told people that we were going to do. And so, for me, it was the best of both worlds. And I still believe the charter schools, can hold that promise. So thank you, Jessica, for that comment. All right, we're gonna shift a little bit here. So what I want to do next is, so what's happening right now, and I'm not going to pick on Texas, but we're going to talk about Texas because Texas has been in some crazy headlines. And I know sometimes they're headlines, you have to go back and look at really what they're saying. So right now we've had a conversation around charter schools, but we still know that it's pretty much a smaller piece of the pie. And if you're one of those 10% of people that rely on charter schools, that's your whole world. It's 100% for you. But we know nationally, most children are in public district schools, private schools, charter schools, and home schools. What's happening in Texas right now is very interesting. Charter schools are part of this quote unquote umbrella, like school choice movement. They're one part of it. We talked about it earlier. And what you've had in the last maybe 5 to 10 years is this, I'll go as far as to say a school choice movement that has been co-opted by folks that are not necessarily interested in providing opportunity for Black and brown children that have been furthest from opportunity, historically speaking. And so you have this larger school choice movement that is, embedded or kind of entrenched in vouchers, taking public money to utilize them for private schooling, and also the creation and the acceleration of a movement, mainly white children and white families, into charter schools that support quote unquote classical education, right? I think it's a code. And so things are getting complicated, right? If you do a school choice roundtable, you're going to have some very interesting players. In Texas, we just saw Governor Abbott announce his support for funding follows the child, right? I don't know what that's going to look like, but he said it. And then over the course of the next 2 days, Governor Abbott claimed that, criticized the Biden administration for shipping baby formula powder directly to the border camps where, young migrant children are being held basically in jail, right? And how can our federal government provide life-sustaining nutrition for these children when there's a national shortage? Governor Abbott has also called for, finding a way to get out of the state's responsibility to educate migrant children, right? Mm-hmm. And he says funding follows the child. He's like a school choice celebrity now, right? And a lot of the same people that are lauding this. So I think we're at this interesting moment. So I wanted to get your take on either one can go first. Like, where do you see these tensions? Like, how do we move our way? How do we move past this? Or do we not? Do we just keep our heads down and keep doing the work in the charter space? Because the table is getting pretty broad, and there's always been a mix of conservatism within the charter space, but I feel like it's just been exacerbated recently. And so I wanted to get your take on it. Maybe first Omar, and then Charles.
It's his hood, so it's his people.
You're up, Texas.
Just a qualifying comment. I'm very proud of being Texan. And I think that, David and I have talked about this a lot. His family is like fifth generation Tejano. It is very much like the border crossed over us scenario, because as everyone knows, or folks don't know, Tejas was definitively part of New Spain and definitively part of Mexico. And then, history happened. So I'm very proud of my state, but there's a lot of us in this state that have very different ideologies than what our leadership is doing. And then we're in El Paso, man. Like, the state don't give a shit about us, dude. Like, they forgot we exist. Geographically, we're halfway located through New Mexico. We're on Mountain Standard Time, not even on Central Standard Time. But to get to the topic of what I'm thinking about this, like, look, you're dealing with an incredibly complex scenario. So let me try to pick this apart piece by piece quickly. You have Governor Abbott, who has presidential aspirations. This guy is trying to run for president. In the current political landscape, it's really about how far right can I go in order to garner attention, because the Republican Party has really turned into the party of Trump. So there's no coincidence that his ideas educationally are leaning far to the right, which is essentially like David, you put it really well, co-opt the charter movement that is so much about parental power, parental choice, well-constructed management, and a high level of accountability, guys. Extraordinary level of high accountability. In Texas, you can't run a for-profit charter school in the state of Texas. You mess up your financials 3 years out of your 10-year approval, you're shut down permanently. So there are some nefarious players in the traditional world, the charter world, and any business world. But I got to tell you, the amount of regulation on charter schools in Texas is extreme. So what they're really doing is trying to take this group of people and saying, you are a right group of people, to then let's move this into the direction of, listen, the money follows the kid. And I know where Charles stands on this. And I to a certain extent have a level of agreeance with, all right, cool. Your kid wants to go to a private school. Your kid wants to go to this school, that school. The money follows the child. All right. If your child goes to an effed up school that's totally deregulated and doesn't do well by the child, don't say I didn't warn you already. For-profit colleges have demonstrated that lack of accountability already. Trump University, Vista University, even here in El Paso, got shut down for similar reasons. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, you're seeing a situation in Texas, which, by the way, everyone should be very mindful of, because it's a little bit less educational, but more political, but that circles back into educational. So the educational stuff co-ops with now Abbott's passing one of the most draconian abortion laws in the country. Basically, he's enacted a trigger law saying that if the Supreme Court votes down Roe v. Wade, now all abortions in the state of Texas are absolutely illegal from the moment of fertilization. Okay. Now you got a guy who basically effed up this state. He shut down the entire power grid out of extraordinary negligence and nepotistic work within the Texas power structure. Nepotistic is the least of it. Ludicrously corrupt and inefficient work. You had, lying Ted Cruz run around, Cancun Ted Cruz take off in the middle of this thing. And really what the far right is doing is hey, don't pay attention to how bad we messed up. Let's talk about these abortion laws. Let's talk about these educational laws, because this is where I think everyone should be a little bit scared, is that you've got a guy who's going on the far right to run for president. But the thing is, Texas has such power because of the population that things that happen educationally here, you're going to start seeing co-opted across the country. Mm-hmm. You probably won't see it in New York, and you probably won't see it in California, but you can sure as shit start seeing that. Sorry, sponsors. Sure as heck start seeing that across the board in other areas. Florida, exactly. Wisconsin, Minnesota, all these places that are kind of on those fringes. Ohio will start adopting these ideologies very quick. So what Abbott is doing is a very strategic ploy to go to the far right, garner as much attention as he can, make a presidential bid in 2024, be the sweetheart of the right, and essentially Trump. And that's what the 2024 election is going to be. But for us, the me, the little guy, the little people, the ramifications could be massive, because the kinds of things that he's trying to do educationally in the state, you're looking at what his policy is as if he becomes president right now. And boy, oh boy, like, what's going to happen then?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's so basically it's around the migrant piece and how I feel about that, and like Abbott. So I agree with everything that you said. I think that Abbott is definitely trying to run for president, and you got to make some platitudes. I want to say this though, right? Self-determination of Black people, of brown people, does not belong to any political party. It does not belong to Republicans. It does not belong to Democrats. So first, I want to just make sure and say, listen, you should be on the lookout for what's in the best interest of your child. You should be a little bit selfish. I'm sorry. Like I'm not with telling Black and brown people who have historically been given terrible education that they got to take it on the chin for everybody else. I'm not doing that. It's just not a thing in my mind. I do believe that money follows the child. I also think that the leadership in Texas is extreme. And I think that they're trying to be extreme because he is trying to win that Trump vote. And I also think that he is trying to gear up to out-Trump Trump so he can beat Trump in the primary. I think that that's going to be something that we're going to see. We're going to see extreme levels at this point, right? I think the other thing, so I don't know what to necessarily say about Texas, right? But I do know this. Just because somebody that I am diabolically against, that don't put it like this. That's like Trump said water's good for you, so I can't drink water no more. Well, I still don't like Trump, but I know like we have to have discernment. This is a place where old Black people would say discernment is needed. And what does discernment look like? What discernment means understanding what is good and right for you and good and right for your family. So you have to make those decisions. So I think that you can say, listen, I want to have free access to education. I want to make sure that the folks that come into this country can be able to get educated. I want to make sure that I have access to choice. And I do not agree with these other platitudes. I do not agree with this blanket abortion thing. I do not agree with this trying to rise of the Confederacy dance that is happening right now in Texas. I don't agree with those things. Right now is going to be the time for moral courage for people and for us to be some type of educated, so people can't just knock on our door and say, oh, I'm Democrat and this is the slate. You need to start asking some questions. You need to make sure you're getting what you deserve, because none of these politicians have lived up to their promise for Black people. None of them. I have been Democrat for a long time. I've worked in the Democratic Party. You know what I'm saying? I cut my teeth doing that type of work. You know what I'm saying? And there were many times where my party left me. You know what I mean? That don't mean I'm running over to Republicans either. What it means is that I read the issues. What it means is I read the reports. What it means is I look at different sources. We have to stop just looking at one source and one thing and saying, oh, I trust this. We have to stop going down slate sheets and saying, oh, okay, I'm waiting for my letter in the mail that's telling me who I should vote for. We got to stop doing that. We have to stop doing that. And politics is really, really, really local. It's really local. And you've seen the rise of popularity and dollars spent in school board elections over the last 10 years. It's a reason for that, because school board elections and what's happening on that hyper localized level is starting to drive larger policy and have larger implications. And you'll see when these midterms come, and you saw what happened in the last swing when Republicans were running on quote unquote parent voices or whatnot, right? But the only parents that they met in that case was white parents, because Black and brown parents have been stepping up, have been coming to school board meetings, have been there till 1 o'clock in the morning with me, trying to make sure that their kids can read. So stop allowing these people, when you ask for your schools to be held accountable and have good education, stop letting them tell you, well, that's the only reason that they're saying that is because the test is racist. Stop falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Stop it. I go around schools all the time. Our kids are not getting the things that they deserve. Many of their schools still look like jails. And if you live in a town where your leaders constantly only blame charters for the problems that the traditional schools are having, then I got a bridge to sell you, man. I got a bridge to sell you because this stuff has been messed up long before the proliferation of charters. I went to Lafayette Elementary School. I went to Westlake Junior High School. And guess what? They both sucked long before charters came. They both had fights. They both had people out here handcuffing kids long before charters were there. So if you somebody that wants to support your teachers and you want to support your unions and all of that good stuff, and I have no issue with that, and you want to support your school, God bless you, right? But you should be able to ask for the things you need. And you can agree with wanting choice and access to charter schools without agreeing to ice out migrant children. You can agree to want choice for schools without being a Trumpite. You can agree because you know why? Because you are an intelligent, caring parent, person, community member, advocate, and you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You have the ability to think and have different thoughts at the same time. So stop sacrificing your baby, our futures, to political nonsense that people say to get their kid elected, and they will never put their kid next to yours in those schools. Ever. So that's my take on your question, David.
Yeah, there you go.
What up, man?
Yeah, so really quickly, and then we're going to open this up to our listeners and our guests. What both of you have shared, and also thinking about the Freedom Friday podcast this morning with Sharif and Chris Stewart, they gave this analogy, and I want to put this forward to people without getting into details, right? We're in this moment now where we're talking about charter schools, we're talking about self-determination for Black and brown children, and we have an active far left wing, a political wing that is not taking all children into consideration. We have a far right wing that is not taking all children into consideration. And it's literally the left wing and the right wing, but it's the same damn bird, right? It's the same bird, right? And so you're running a charter school, you're a charter school advocate, you're a charter school parent. Again, you cannot be, there's no such thing as being neutral, because that bird, depending on which way the wind is blowing, may decide that your children don't matter, right? Depending on what's happening politically. And so what we've seen is, on the left side of the house, these charter school regulations that recently have come out of the Department of Education, which were not vetted by charter school leadership, charter school advocates, charter school supporters, charter school children, parents, right? They just put them out. And it's very interesting going back to Omar's comments about what's happening in Texas. You're going to start seeing it in other states. What's happening now at the federal level with these charter school regulations is not new. This stuff was born and bred in California via AB 1505. So the left wing of the house, the left side, the right side of the house, they're operating essentially in the same way, moving their initiatives and their platforms forward. And it's shady, regardless of whether you believe them or not. But it's how politics works. And I think if you are going to enter into the arena of running and managing or governing a charter school or even attending one, you've got to be aware of this stuff. And I think that's where, some of the work that we do as a South Star Classroom, we can help people beyond the world of academics and managing your school and governing your school. There's a political element. Once you say that you are pulling away from the larger system to charterize a school, that is in and of itself a political act, and you have to be prepared for that, right? And so we all have experience in that field, so I wanted to put that forward. I think we have wanted to put out this opportunity if any of our listeners now, and particularly if any of you, the same bird, the same wings of white supremacy. Thank you, Jamoke. So if anybody's interested in joining our chat right now, joining in our actual live podcast that was maybe in DC advocating for charter schools for Charter School Week, we'd love to hear from you. We probably can't have everyone, but if anyone is available, Charles, can you drop the StreamYard link for?
Didn't you have
I
Is
did,
Mo
but I don't
coming
see
first?
her. Yeah, we had somebody.
Jamoke, if you coming, you better come. Hold
Yeah.
on, I'll put it in there now though.
We just want to get a sense of people that were on the ground in DC advocating for charter schools, like what that was like, what that experience was like for folks this past week.
Yeah. So while we're waiting
see.
for whomever to pop on in his thing, now you're not here. You would pop up on the screen. Jamoke says she's here. Try to hit that link, Jamoke. It'll pop you up, and I'll have to let you in. But nah, man, I just to stay on this Texas thing real quick, man, or whatever. Like, you know, I want to just make sure that people, you know, I just don't like the games that people play with our families.
There we go.
With our parents. I just don't like it. Yeah, I'm waiting for her video to come up. Jamoke, as soon as there she goes. So let's go ahead and check in with somebody that's been there, that was out there repping. Look at that hat. Hold on. What's going on, lady?
Hey, I'm telling you, on my way to graduation. So,
Woo!
Shout out to Bay Tech, Bay Area Technology School in Oakland. 14-year-old charter school. Yeah. Their superintendent actually lives in Texas. That's another story. That's another show.
Yeah.
So I got to go to DC. It was a blessing. I was with the FIA, Federation of Youth, and the parents of FIA. And we toured up. There were only 2 groups that had high school students, and we were one of those groups. From predominantly Latino students, one African American young man from Lighthouse. Shout out Lighthouse. He's a senior, JoJo. It was incredibly powerful. You had Miss Gwen, you had Miss Sarah, Miss Hawkins. I was meeting people for the first time. Because I've known them virtually and through COVID, but just knowing the power of the work they do in Tennessee or the power they do in Texas. I don't know. I'm new even to that community. And so for me, it was like I could see the homecoming, I could see the fight, I could see the beauty of the children. The children, give thanks for the children. Know what I'm saying? How are the children? And they were well in that space. They were well. So that's my contribution. The law is messed up. It's connected to 1505, 1507. What Omar was kind of speaking to, this.
Can you explain 1505 and 1507 for the folks that are not as savvy?
1507 were the California state legislature passed these charter laws. David's going to be better at explaining them, but they actually created more restrictions on charter schools around renewal and pretty onerous. But one of the biggest pieces was that charter schools could be denied based on a financial impact on the school district.
Right.
And so it happened right before COVID. So we didn't really have a sense of impact. And now we're starting to see schools that are being denied, new schools based on this 1505 rule. So we have to watch that. So the connection there is that I don't know this for sure, but the assistant secretary, one of them is Cindy is her first name. I can't remember her last name. She's
Cindy
from
Martin.
San Diego, was fiercely anti-charter in San Diego. And so now she's the secretary. She's at the federal level. So we believe we know she brought 1505, 1507, and some of that very onerous kind of language and policy that actually shutters opportunity for innovation, resources going out to schools and to people who want in communities that want to create new charter schools. And so you need that startup dollar straight up. You need the coins, as the sister was saying, from Rochester, New York, where her child had a 4.2. I think she was a KIP or a rocket ship, one of those schools. So anyway, yeah. So I just feel like, Omar, all y'all were hitting on the idea of one, Charles saying we have to educate ourselves about what's knocking on our door, who's knocking on our door. We have to discern. Very powerful, important. And Omar, again, like knowing that connection to the policies, the outrageousness of some of those things, right? But that are imposing on a woman's right, her body, herself. And so, no, you know what I mean? And knowing in a neighborhood close to you, and trust me, bruh, they'll be in Cali. It ain't like they ain't gonna be in Cali with that madness. So
Yo,
you know, white
Look at our
supremacy, right?
look at
It's
our on the
everything.
ground
I love
I
correspondent
gotta
Jamoke.
go. I love y'all.
Thank you.
Blessings.
good to see
Wow.
you,
How about that?
I know. I mean, we should
Yeah.
just have her come in every week as an on the ground correspondent. That was good.
I think
Yeah.
it's hot fire. Just to add one really quick thing, just to kind of state how draconian things are in Texas. Abbott's trying to tie on an abortion or a proviso to his abortion bill that essentially says we'll track you down if you go to California and get an
Yeah.
abortion.
I saw that.
Which
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any legality to that. Like that, you start getting into like state rights versus federal rights, and you know everything that accompanies that Supreme Court case, which we all took con law. And trying to remember the name of that case in particular, but look, I will I want to just quickly say this, and then I know we got to get into final comments and so forth. Is one of the things that rang true with what the doc says is that this isn't really about camps. It's about deciding what is best for your kids. But in the spread of ludicrous information that's going on right now, this is where Texas is winning. The conservative right, whether you want to stake a camp or not, is absolutely winning this game in messaging. Now, look, like if you've ever studied political science, Poli-Sci 101, it's a midterm year. That means we're not electing a president. We're in between the presidential years. And usually the party that is not in the power of the presidency loses a ton of representative seats and loses a bunch of senatorial seats. So the competing party usually gains. I think we're going to see unprecedented gains in the Republican Party. But what I'm worried about less than Republican or Democrat or left or right is that the right is fundamentally taken over the ideologue game. Messaging on the left-hand side, messaging for what we're trying to talk about here, messaging in a logical manner is not happening in mainstream media. It is just absolutely fixated on urgency and crisis, and the right wing is absolutely winning this game. So why we launched this podcast is to dissect these pieces of information logically. But man, I got to urge everybody, in the age of ludicrous disinformation, you've got to work 17 times harder to garner what is really going on and what are the motivations. Because man, the left needs a fucking, damn it, language, needs a dang publicist, and they need someone that is as persuasive in their messaging as the right is, because the old adage is like Democrats are the policy wonks. We're the ones trying to, be out here fixing the problems. Lately, I don't know what the hell the Democrats are trying to fix. Look, I got buddies who work for the Biden administration, and I'm like, cool, you're doing all this. No one knows you're doing all this. So what good is it that you're doing all these things behind the scenes if you're unable to message the American people that they're doing it? Because then they're just going to elect you out of office. And then what are you going to be able to accomplish then? So my two sentiments, man, like be very aware of what you hear these days, and like, let's get our messaging game up, because we're getting completely hijacked by the right wing right now. And I don't want anyone to hijack the information game. It needs to be, how are we informing parents of what is real so that we could support and empower them to make the best choices possible and not hoodwink them?
That's right. And so you had so the best people to deliver that message around the power of charter schools are children that are enrolled in charter schools, and families that send their children to charter schools, and teachers that teach in charter schools, and staff that work in charter schools, and leaders such as yourself, Omar. And I don't know how many charter school board members there are out there. Somebody should do the math, but there are a lot of people that serve on charter school boards, right? And they're part of the equation too. And so considering like what was happening in DC this last week, this pushback against some of these federal regulations that would, undeniably make it more difficult to operate and to open and to sustain charter schools for children that desperately need them. I wanted to end on a positive note, something that I've seen in my time, in the quote unquote movement, are, spaces for, leaders of color, spaces where when we talk about charter school advocacy, I really feel like it's an important thing for leaders to have a space, for teachers to have a space, for families to have a space to advocate, that are very specific and tied to the math, which says 70% of children in charter schools are children of color. And that's a different kind of advocacy as opposed to what it was like when I started in working in charter schools, where it tended to be, maybe 70% white and 30% of the people that showed up were people of color. We need to flip that. I think organizations that are doing the work to focus on creating spaces for conversations, for advocacy, for growing teacher pipelines is critical work. And I think outside of the politics that we talked about, I agree with you. It's not a distraction, but at the same time, we've got to remain focused on uplifting and empowering the voices of children, of parents, and of adults who this work really matters to. And in some cases, it's a life and death issue, right? We know that working in the cities that we've all worked in. So I wanted to close on that message, and we can have further conversations, but that's how I got into charter schools, focusing on what was best for kids like me, brown kids, and Black children, and that's what I'll continue to do. And I think we are making progress in terms of creating spaces for our voice to become more laser focused and to come from people directly that are impacted by the work. So I'll leave it there. We'll just do one quick go around. Charles, if you have closing thoughts on this Charter Schools Week, and then Omar, we'll let you close out, unless you feel like you've already closed out. It's up to you, man. I know, either way.
I'm good. Charles?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you go already, David? Or I want to make sure you get you.
That was it. That was my closing thought, man. That was it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, cool. Well, I'll say this then, man. I'm writing this piece right now called "Confessions of a Political Bastard." Let me speak for myself. I'm a political bastard, and bastard. People mostly know that term as like a child to unwed parents. But there's also another term. It also has another meaning called debased. Something that's no longer in its pure form. And Democrats is my party. I'm still technically registered as a Democrat. But I am debased in the sense where you were once the party of equity. You were once the party of civil rights. You were once the party that wanted to treat, or said you wanted to treat, Black and brown people, immigrants, gay, straight, regardless, everybody who comes to this country, you want to treat them with the dignity to be able to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Yet still, you allow unions to write your education policy that is not steeped in excellence. It is not steeped in ensuring that Black and brown people get the type of education they need so they can take part in the American dream in the same way. You are just trying to make sure that you are covering for your corporate overlords and that happen to be unionistas. And I have nothing against the meaning of a union. I understand what it is, except when we are talking about education, when we are talking about making sure I am not trapped in the system that you said I wouldn't be trapped in. That's the Democrats. Now let's look at the Republicans. The Republicans is like an absent, abusive, terrible parent, but they show up once a year with ice cream. And you want that damn ice cream. You want that ice cream so bad, but everything else is so toxic. It is so hateful. It is so spiteful. It is so derogatory. It is a debasement of the values that they had, where a Republican Party that used to be fiscally conservative. Okay, we're not going to overspend. We're not going to do this, or whatever the case is. But yet and still, we waste tons and tons of money pumping them into schools that people obviously don't want, that schools that people have said, I am voting with my feet. And instead of listening to these people that are voting with their feet and their actions, you don't want to have an equal playing field. You want to just wipe them off the map because you can't compete. And then you get mad at me because I use terms like end user. Well, I'm obsessed with my end user. I want to know how my kids and parents feel about their school. I want to know what they're learning. I want to make sure that no other kid graduates from a high school where I had a 3.83 GPA, but yet and still I got to college and didn't know what a thesis was. How does that happen? Who does that? And you have to be wary of anybody, any organization, any entity where when things go wrong, nothing is their fault. But anytime something remotely goes well, they take all the credit. Them is not people you want to be in business with. Them is not entities you want to be in business with. Those are not beds you want to lay in, nor cars you want to drive. So the people that's listening to this, you have a duty. You have a duty to educate yourself so these people can no longer manipulate you, shame you, make you feel some kind of way for wanting better than crumbs. You are not a slave, no more. You do not have to accept these crumbs, no more. You are not that. Demand dignity. And in dignity, that says my kids deserve the best education. If you can't provide it, I'm going elsewhere. And if you don't like, you can kiss my ass. That's my final thought.
Damn.
Boom. All right. We just lost all of our sponsors. There you go. No.
I'll get us more.
That's it. That's it. I mean, you said it. You said it. I think, you know, we're going to end now. I want to thank everybody for joining today's show, South Star Classroom. And thank you to everybody that, you know, we've been fighting for a long time. The charter schools, we've been fighting for more than 20 years, but people have been fighting for 100 years, you know, for our kids, and we'll continue to fight for our kids, right? And so let's continue to find community in spaces like this and other, you know, education circles. Let's continue to grow our movement and our community, because we're not going to stop, because there are children, as Charles said, and as Omar is doing, that deserve a right to a fair education, a quality education, and an education where children and families and community are honestly and authentically respected and supported. And that's what we're all about. South Star Classroom, thank you for joining us today.
One more thing I forgot to say. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
The last thing is I'll be on the road again for next week's show, but I'll be back in Oakland. I'll be showing a very, very special, I'll be moderating a conversation after a movie premiere about two Black boys from Oakland. It's a 15-minute short film that's won a lot of awards, but I'll be back there and we'll be presenting that movie at LinkedIn in San Francisco. We are welcoming all. Bring your Black children, bring your Black parents. It's a really, really powerful film. And I'll be speaking with one of the stars and moderating a larger conversation. I'll share it on social media, but I have to do a better job of promoting that. So I will be in another hotel or Airbnb or something next Friday, but I will be back home in my
moving around, man. We got to get on your miles plan. I'm sure you got good miles.
I know, man. I understand. Right. I'm gonna get married at some point. I ain't gonna be able to do this no more, man. But that's
do it while you can
for a long time. So yes, but with that, man, for Omar, for David, I am Charles. This has been another installment of the South Star Classroom. We will see you next week, same bat time, same bat station. You all be healthy, take care of each other, and take care of yourselves. Peace.
Peace.